All right, everyone, we'll be on in just a couple minutes. We're just getting a few more things set up, so just sit tight. We'll be there in a sec. Hello, everyone, and welcome to round 2 of the Davy Dak fights with none other than ThreeVolt. So I'm going to get it right out of the way. I know a lot of you have probably heard about what happened to ThreeVolt's account earlier this week. Emu tried to erase him, but he failed. He's already back on stream. We planned that before the hack, and he got through it, and he's still here, so that's amazing. So, it's awesome that ThreeVolt was able to be here. We're glad we're past that. But even more importantly, I'm really glad to have ThreeVolt here today because, just like I said with King Recon last week, a lot of creators, before I became a creator, impacted me in a big way, right? So King Recon, I talked a lot about how every time there was a big chapter, he kind of channeled the hype during his reactions, and it was always fun for me, and I'm sure a lot of you guys, to go and see, his reactions for all those things, as he's been doing it for such a long time. And for me, for ThreeVolt, one of my biggest memories is, and for a lot of you guys, I assume as well, are theories, right? He makes a lot of amazing theories and a lot that kind of make their way through the ether of the community pretty well. I know for me, the Blackbeard theory is a big one, and I vividly remember Randy bringing you on one time to discuss on a stream or something like that, and I was super hyped. I made sure to mark it on my calendar. I was really pumped to see ThreeVolt and Randy, because those are, ThreeVolt was coming out with great theories. He's kind of like Parvision to me a little bit, where it's like new theories that people aren't thinking about, new ways of thinking, and he brings a lot of like Hindu mythology and stuff like that to the table. So I'm really excited to have him here, because he's definitely one that, since before I was a creator, impacted me a lot. So ThreeVolt, it's awesome to have you here, man. Thank you so much.
For sure, bro. I'm so happy to be here, because you've been killing it. You guys, everyone watching this stream, you guys know, like, Dax has been going crazy. So I'm really excited to, talk to you guys in the chat, chop it up with some One Piece. I'm just thrilled to be here, honestly.
Hey, man, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I mean, you're killing it too. Emu tried taking you out. You're killing it so much. So, no, I mean, I can't wait to see what 2023 has for everyone. One Piece in general is blowing up, just generally speaking, but we have a lot of stuff to look forward to this year specifically that's going to take One Piece to the next level, I think. We have Gear 5th coming in the anime, we have the live action, and just the manga in general. So why don't we just start with that? I kind of did this with King Recon last week, so why don't you just kind of give me your thoughts on kind of where One Piece is headed, just like the community angle, and the manga's obviously getting hype. So I just want to get your view, because you've been doing this for a while. What do you think about kind of how One Piece has transitioned to more of a mainstream thing over the years?
It's definitely like a good thing, because like a lot of One Piece readers and fans, I would say most people are super into the story. Like, everyone's like such a big fan. So when you have like this really big hobby of yours, or like this passion that like you talk about all the time, of course you'd want to know more people that can relate to you, and more people that you could talk to about One Piece. So like with One Piece just becoming like a bigger thing, and just a bigger, more popular source of media, like it's a really good thing for people. You know, it's good for everybody, including creators, you know, getting to meet more supporters, people getting into the story, you know, enjoying the same thing, you know, as yourself. I think it's a very good thing. And same with the live action. Live action, in my eyes, is like, it's a situation where I can only benefit from, if not just stay neutral, because if for whatever reason the live action doesn't appeal to me, I could just ignore it and just pretend it just doesn't exist. But you know, in the chance that it succeeds, like I would actually watch the live action. I would have more friends that know about One Piece from the live action. So I'm really excited to see like One Piece, you know, as a story and as a community grow.
Yeah, that's it for me, man. It's, you know, for us who are already loving One Piece, you know, I see it, and I mean, you know, I feel kind of protective of the series a little bit too. So I know when people say, oh, like, I don't want to see One Piece have a bad live action and get, you know, the Cowboy Bebop treatment or whatever other live action you want to pick that didn't really pan out. But like you're saying, for me, it's kind of like, if it doesn't do well, we still have the manga, we still have the anime, like our experience doesn't change. And so it is definitely, you know, upsetting to see, you know, if it wasn't, you know, as good as we hope it is unfortunate to see that happen. But at the same time, like, the community can only grow from it. Like, the community that One Piece already has, like, no one's gonna, or I shouldn't say nobody, but I would assume barely anyone's gonna drop off if they don't like the live action. Now, on the other hand, like you're saying, think about all the potential for people to get into the community. You know, for us as creators, that's a big benefit. You know, that's just a bigger audience and all that. But even outside of that, it's just, you know, we love One Piece just like everyone else does, and we want as many people into it. I'm sure you have talked to your friends and tried to get their friends in, or try to get your friends into One Piece so that, you know, they can enjoy the journey. And for me, it's a lot of like, man, like, this series is only going to end once, and I want people to be there whenever it happens so we can all enjoy it. So no, I totally get that. I'm very optimistic about the future for sure. You know, when I first read One Piece, the subreddit was at like 300,000 people, and now it's like 1.7 million people, and that's just like one small example. But yeah, man, it's just amazing to see all the new people joining, you know.
100%. And you know, I would even go as far as to say, I forgot who brought this up to me. Maybe it was Rain Detroit, don't quote me on it, but the way someone pitched it is like, you know, East Blue, as you know, as a piece of media, like the anime, is pretty good, but you know, that was produced decades ago at this point. So with technology, you know, up to date, you know, stuff that was used in 2021, 22, 23, they actually have a chance to make the live action East Blue just outright better than the anime East Blue. Because again, like the technology, you could even like try to add like a little bit of hints to hockey, maybe some background posters. Like, they have so much opportunity to foreshadow from the live action to stuff that's going to happen later on down the line in the story.
Yes, that, I love how you said that. That is perfect. Like, that's because now, you know, Matt Owens is obviously a massive fan of the series. He's been on the Reverie multiple times and other streams and stuff. And so for him, he's going to be able to, and I mean, you know, there's obviously a bunch of people, so I don't want to say it's just him, but generally speaking, you know, these people like One Piece, and like you're saying, they can kind of peer into the future a little bit and throw some, you know, a little bit of spice here and there to make things a little bit richer, both for us as viewers who are going to pick up on that, and other people who are going to have the same feeling later on if they keep watching it, like, oh, is that why in episode 1 this happened, like, because like, and that's coming back, you know. So it's kind of like you're saying, like, they can almost update it and do a little updated version of Oda's foreshadowing, you know what I mean, because they know a lot. Like one thing I've heard, I don't know if this is still accurate, but I remember hearing this very early on in the process, that maybe it's like a leaked script, so this obviously might not be accurate, but this is just an idea, where they said like it might start by Zoro fighting Mr. Seven, which was said in the manga, but we never saw it, and so it could start with Zoro fighting Mr. Seven because he killed Mr. Seven, right, from Baroque Works before, you know, he met Luffy and all that. And so it's like starting with that would be like a cool thing where, like, you know, we kind of like, and that's like a small thing, but that's something like we know happened, but we never actually saw it, and you could start off with that because that's like a pretty like, that would catch your attention if like the series started that way, you know, like kind of show, oh, this is a serious thing. So yeah, and you know, like, I just started editing my Lucky Roo video, and part of what I talk about in there is like Lucky Roo killed a guy in the first episode, right? Like, he set the tone for the whole series in episode 1. And I think live action is a really good medium for stuff like that, right? Like a scene like a death scene like that, where, like, you know, they're all fun-loving pirates, and then, like, in a fell swoop, a guy just speeds up and shoots him and kills him. Like, that's the kind of thing where I think live action has a big chance to really hook people in, because that's something in live action that's going to stand out a lot, you know? So I'm looking forward to it for sure.
I hope it's a success. I'm sure it'll grab somebody, right?
Yes, that's it, man. It's like you said, it's only up from here. You know what I mean? Like, if it doesn't work out, you know, so be it. But East Blue is some prime material. You know, like some of the best. Like, as far as like just pure storytelling, like getting it started, we get all the crew members in the East Blue, all that kind of, or most of the crew members in the East Blue. So
Arlong Park.
Yes, dude. Arlong Park is gonna be so good. Like, that's, I mean, the Nami moment. You know, that's gonna be everything. But all right, I want to go ahead and transition over into chapter 1075. I know there's a lot of good discussion on that, both in my stream yesterday and after it. So I just want to get your general thoughts on where we're going. So for those who don't know, ThreeVolt, correct me if I'm wrong, but you predicted the Gorosei planet names like a year ago or something like that, correct? So I know you've been kind of on this. So why don't you give us just kind of your thoughts of, like, I mean, like, where we're headed generally speaking, you know, maybe just, I don't know, just some of your thoughts on maybe where we're going to go next, or what's going to happen after chapter 1075.
Right now, Oda's like throwing in a lot of curveballs. So we have the whole Seraphim thing. You know, I don't really think anybody saw that coming. I thought, like, most people thought there was going to be like a whole bunch of like super strong pacifistas with devil fruits and stuff like that, but Oda threw the curveball and gave us Seraphim. And I think that actually matters, because, you know, when Luffy beat Kaido, our reaction as a community is like, oh shoot, Luffy's too strong now, like what's going to happen from here on out? Then Oda throws in the Seraphim, and I forgot what the exact wording was in Viz, but it was something like the strongest people in the world, strongest force in the world, or something like that. That's very important. But yeah, seeing how at least one of the Godosei has a name of a planet, I think most people at this point expect the other Godosei members to have planets. And the reason why that's so important is these guys run the world. You know, a lot of times as a fan, I feel like people kind of discredit that. Like, yes, they're old men, you know, who are sitting in Marishwa, but like, these guys are extremely crucial to the story. And I think that will play a role into Emu. I believe like these 20 kings that came together, eradicated the ancient kingdom and Joy Boy, whatever. They're all going to be in relation to outer space. And like that connects to my video on why I think Emu is the personification of the moon. But aside from that, the traitor situation is extremely difficult. Yes. In my opinion, because there is just an insane amount of details. And I feel like when you kind of like, you know, throw out these ideas and like throw out, you know, these characters that could be the traitor in stream chat, it's very difficult to gauge, because when did this start? Like in 1071, where like the shield opened, some people would even argue the whole traitor thing began before that. Right. I'm sorry for going on this long tangent.
No, dude, but, go for it. That's what this is about.
But yeah, it has me really interested. That's pretty much my whole broad vision on One Piece right now.
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm glad you brought up the traitor, because I agree that is one of the hardest things to pin down. And I, you know, before the stream and on my reaction yesterday, you know, I mentioned this chapter 1075 felt a lot like a Wano chapter, where like we're bouncing floor to floor, getting an update on everyone so that it can all culminate into one big thing. But another way in which it feels like Wano a little bit is that we don't know who the traitor is. Remember, like with Conjuro, we didn't know, right? Like we were like, there's someone here who is doing something, and and now shout out to was it Marco the Phoenix? Is that his YouTube name? I don't know. He predicted it. He had like he had a little you know, he went on everyone's channel for like a couple weeks. I remember that. Shout out to him, but he got it right. But it feels very similar to that, where it's like, I think once we learn it, it's going to make a lot of sense, and we're going to be like, oh, all right, like that. All right, like, I don't know why. How did no one think of that? But by the same token, I don't really feel that way about Stussy. Like whenever Stussy was revealed to be like the friend, I was like, it still doesn't make a lot of sense if you ask me, because like Stussy answered the phone, but she was right next to Lucci and Kaku, which is like, how did that How did they not know? But still, you know, Oda's been doing an amazing job of basically hiding things really well. You know what I'm saying? So I'm with you, man. I have no idea what the traitor is. I would say 2 ideas that have really stood out to me. First one is Hattori, the bird. I know I don't know if you've heard this, but they think Hattori's Lafitte, which is an amazing idea. It's really interesting, man, because like we haven't seen Hattori since, and whenever we first met Blackbeard's crew, they were like, aren't we supposed to meet Lafitte here? Like, Lafitte isn't with them normally, you know? So it's like, and he obviously snuck into Marijois somehow, right? So there is like some like weird things going on with it, right? Like Hattori. So give me your thoughts on that. Like, what do you think about Hattori? And if not that, do you think Hattori is just a bird and not important, or do you think he's going to be something else?
I hope Hattori is important. Like, that's such a cool, I think I've heard about that too, but it's such a cool idea. Because like, even back in Water 7, like Hattori, they had that whole thing where it's like Hattori would speak for Lucci, if I'm not mistaken, and then Lucci started finally like actually talking to people. I forgot how it was pitched exactly, but I think that's a very fun idea, and I don't think there's any holes in that. Like, if Hattori was a traitor, or if Hattori was a different person or whatever, I think there's room for that to manifest. Because you know, as much as I like fun theories, it's just like in me as a person and like mentally, I always like the logic side of it. If I feel like something will have a plot hole, or if it doesn't make sense and it doesn't line up with Oda's themes or whatever, it's hard for me to get engaged to a theory. But that one, yes, I feel like that's a fun one that I can't really list any problems from. Yeah, or about.
I like that. I'm in the same exact boat. It's an Oda theory. You know what I'm saying? Like Oda loves doing random fun stuff like that. That's like, especially pulling on old things, right? Because Luffy calls Lucci Pigeon Guy, right? Like his name, like Luffy's name for Lucci is Pigeon Guy. So it's like, oh, okay, like that just puts a little emphasis on the pigeon a little more than normal. Because usually it's like an appearance thing, which I guess the pigeon is an appearance, but it's not like a part of him, you know what I mean? So it is an interesting little twist. And I also think that's interesting because if that's the case, then I think Sengoku's goat needs a second look as well. You know what I'm saying? Because that's like another pure white animal, which we now know, Luffy turns all white in Gear 5th and like Sulong and all that. So like that's important. So we have an all white bird and now an all white goat as well. So if the bird ends up being something, you know, I mean, is the goat could be like Emu's like a snail or something, like a camera for Emu or something, because it's with Sengoku, who's the fleet admiral. You know what I'm saying?
That's crazy.
and he also feeds like papers to the goat, which makes me think that it's like important government things that like it's like a paper shredder. Like he's like, all right, to get rid of this important document, I'll have the goat eat it. And that's another layer where it's like, okay, well, like Emu would probably want to be the one to make sure that stuff gets removed, you know? So I don't know, man. I don't know, man. Sengoku's goat. You know, it might be something.
I'm glad to know. I'm glad to hear that I'm not the only person that cared about the goat or wanted the goat to be relevant in some way.
Hey man, when like I think animals are huge to One Piece. You know, like obviously I have the Pluton as a mole theory, which real quick I'm going to take a second to talk about the super chat because I see it's brought up. Hey, shout out to Angu Makafor for the $10 super chat. I appreciate you. I probably butchered your name. I'm sorry. I was probably close though. You said, big fan of you guys. Pluton for mole and Gorosei named after planets. Let's go. I appreciate you for that. You know, Pluton is a mole. I know you and I got to talk about that a good amount, ThreeVolt, during the reverie and stuff. So you know, I guess what I'm going to say is a reason why I think Pluton is a mole is very similar to this discussion on Hattori in the GOAT, is where I think Oda has made it clear that animals are really important. Like Poseidon is all the biggest sea creatures, right, being aligned. So it's like, so I think the moles, that's like one of the biggest reasons that I said is the animals under the ground are going to be tied to that ancient weapon, and there's going to be animals of the sky that are tied to it. So thank you for the super chat, Angu. And ThreeVolt, why don't you just go ahead? Like, I know a lot of people probably want to hear it. How do you feel about Pluton as a mole? Are you aligned with that? Do you like that theory? I know you know the gist of it. So what do you think?
Yeah, so I actually really love it because when I first watched the video, Parvish linked to me it probably like days after you uploaded it, something like extremely early on. And, you know, from my memory, I was like, okay, it seems like the mole that was in the cover story could be like a vessel metaphorically for foreshadowing that Pluton is under Wano, and like Pluton doesn't have to actually be a mole. But when we were in VC, I think it might have been the Reverie, and you actually gave me it wasn't the Reverie. No. I think it was with Parvision.
I think it was the Reverie because Randy brought me on, and that was like the first thing he had me say. So I think that was it. But, yeah. So it was the Reverie, and I think you said that the port, or they named the port after the mole because they knew it was down there, right? Yeah, you said something. I was like, okay, then it has to be a mole. Yes, no, man. Well, first off, I'm glad you like the mole theory. That means a lot, because usually when another good theorist likes the idea, that's like very validating. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it could, like, some people might just like it or dislike it just on face value, but I know theorists are gonna like put that, you know, like 10 extra layers of thought into it. So it means a lot that you like it. And yeah, so for that port, yeah, dude, it's crazy that the one port that's in old Wano, technically, right, like at the base where Wano was 800 years ago, that port is the Mogura port, right? And Mogura also means Earth Dragon as well as mole, so that's a whole other thing where like Pluton is a mole that can destroy islands. Well, maybe that's because it's also like it has Earth Dragon abilities, like that's where the name mole comes from, right? But yeah, dude, I mean, you know, that was really one of the biggest selling points to me. There was a guy in Parvision's Discord. I know it starts with Q, but it was a bunch of letters, so shout out to Q. But he sent that to me, and that was immediately like, oh, I gotta go make a part 2 and the part 3. You know what I mean? Like that is, that's crazy, you know? So my thing, like how my brain works personally, maybe there's other people that feel this way in chat, let us know. By the way, like the stream. Appreciate you. Yeah, no problem. So the way my brain works, at least, is like, I don't care about the conclusion of a theory. I want to see, you know, how this was foreshadowed with this Lion Man, this number pun, like this foreshadowing, this cover story. I love to see the reasoning that arrives to the conclusion. So there might be some times where someone will hear Pluton's a mole and they're like, what? That's dumb. But again, like, what matters more? Like, throwing out this idea with no logic behind it, or a great idea that had plenty of foreshadowing used that got to this reasonable conclusion. Yes, no, I think Pluton as a mole is like one of those theories. Yeah, no, I love that, man. It's, you know, it's similar. I would say it's similar, but not quite the same, as almost like Blackbeard is an octopus for you. Like, it's one of those things where you hear it and it's like, bro, it's probably like he watched Pirates of the Caribbean, you know what I mean? And he just like, but it's like, you know, once you hear it, and like, honestly, for me, I remember watching your first video, because I know you have a few Blackbeard videos at this point, but I remember the Blackbeard is an octopus one. I remember like immediately I was like, bro, the 8 crossbones, like what am I even like the multiple hearts, like what am I like, it's like, so like you're saying, it's like that kind of foreshadowing. It's like, bro, like that, like the flag has to matter. This is a way that it makes sense. So like you're saying, it's that way of building it up. And I totally agree. Like, even if Blackbeard doesn't end up being an octopus, or I know you have quite a few other Blackbeard theories and thoughts at this point, which we can get into in a minute, but like you're saying, it's that thought behind it where it's like, all right, and I think Parvision does this a lot too, where it's like, even if the theory isn't right, the stuff you talked about and the foreshadowings and the connections you made, they're gonna matter a different way. Like maybe you didn't weave them together in the right way, and like same thing with me if Pluton is a mole. But like, even if Pluton's not a mole, there's gonna be probably an army of moles that can dig underground somewhere, because there's too many mole references at this point, right? So it's that same idea where, you know, it's the building up to the theory that almost gets me more excited, because I learned so much along the way, as opposed to like the final theory actually being correct. So I definitely agree with that. Yeah, for sure. And like the way like my brain operates like as a theorist while simultaneously doing YouTube is like how I personally, and this is, a lot of people ask me this all the time, like, why do I have multiple videos on the same subject? The way like I operate, like I can look at a mystery and come up with an answer that's just mind-blowing with lots of good evidence, but I wouldn't want to sit there as a person and be like, okay, this is one take that I have, F every other take. Like I don't want to move like that. So like, you know, a lot of times with these mysteries like Blackbeard, he's like so difficult to decipher, where like I don't mind having like a second take or a third take that all make complete sense, and like they all have their foreshadowing, their evidence, whatever. So that's just how I go about it. Yes. No, I'm with you 100%. Like sometimes I'll have a theory that like slightly conflict, and I'm like, guys, like the point isn't that like my exact final theory is correct. It's more so like, I mean, we're just discussing One Piece. Like you know, we all have these deep One Piece thoughts and we think about it way too much, and I presume that's probably what got you started in YouTube. You know, at least for me, it's that I'm texting my friends way too often. I'm sending like novels of theory ideas and no one wants to respond, and I'm like, you know what, man, I just gotta go make a video and then I'll feel good. You know, like everyone will hear it, I can talk there. So yeah, you know, it's just that I think everyone feels the same way. You know, they just want to hear new things, new ways to connect things, because even like you're saying, even if you have 3 different Blackbeard takes, someone might go watch all 3 of those videos and find a way to connect everything, you know what I mean? And then it's just a beautiful, you know, kind of stacking up kind of idea. So I don't know, man, that's one of the awesome things about the One Piece community to me is, you know, you can have 3 different videos on the same thing, and you know, maybe some people won't like that or think like, oh well, like you're just discrediting yourself, but for me it's like, nah man, like you have a lot of good thoughts, you know what I mean? You have a lot of clear, like, makes sense. So I don't know, man. That's one of the reasons I'm excited to have you on stream, you know?
Yeah, bro. It's just like, I would say definitely the majority of One Piece fans and people watching the stream, and just, you know, everyone that's in like the One Piece space online, they definitely embrace it, you know? Like these mysteries and these questions in the story are so difficult to answer, but you could have like 10 mind-blowing answers. It doesn't really matter, you know, how many of those 10 come from the same person, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, and I don't really like check Twitter that often, but like every time I go on Twitter, I see like these guys who have like threads of like long theories, and sometimes like they start off with like they directly conflict, but like it still blows up and gets a lot of traction. I mean, that happens on YouTube too, but Twitter's where I see it the most for whatever reason. But no, it's true, man. I mean, One Piece has so much to talk about, you know. That's really it. It's just such a wide ranging series with so many different ways of thinking it. And like you're saying, like, you know, Blackbeard's gonna have like 5 different layers to him. Like, yes, he's gonna have a fruit power, but he's also gonna have some kind of backstory with probably some kind of mythology tied in, you know what I mean? So like all the different Blackbeard videos you have, and same thing for a lot of theories, they all come into matter, you know, it come into play at some point, maybe in different ways. So yeah, I don't know, that's one thing I really like about your theories is you focus a lot on Hindu mythology, right? I don't know if I'm saying, is it Hindu mythology? I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but
yeah.
Yeah, so real quick, would you, just because I've seen all your videos, but can you give me the very quick synopsis of basically Blackbeard's tie to Hindu mythology? I know you have a couple videos and I've even referenced them, but can you remind me of that and let the chat know kind of just what's Blackbeard's role in Hindu mythology that you think?
Okay, so there's a Hindu monkey god named Hanumanji, and he was in like this great war. It's called the War of Lanka, and Hanumanji was leading a war of monkeys, and someone that he fought in the war, I guess the only person he fought in the war, was a 3-headed demon named Threesiras. And this 3-headed demon had 3 different personalities, and like depending on which of the 3 heads he was using, there would be certain tasks that they would do. I don't know if you want me to go deeper than that, but
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the main points I wanted to carry off of, was the 3-headed part, right? Because I love that. That's the part that I actually referenced in one of my Blackbeard videos, where it's like, you know, maybe Blackbeard's gonna have different personalities or souls within him or whatever. And so now I want to ask you, now we seem to be approaching clone piece technically, so where are you at on the Blackbeard clone talk? Like, do you think he's a clone, or does he have like another will in him, or what do you think's going on with that?
So I don't mind theories as long as they make sense. If I, you know, see you saying like, yo, this is a parallel, this is an inversion, we have this in the cover story that was proven true, like I don't even care what the conclusion is. So like I don't mind, me personally, I don't mind clone piece as long as it's structured correctly. So when we look at Blackbeard, there's so much space to walk in and to go in with his character, and you know, his deep connection to Xebec in whichever way it unfolds. I think he's a character that I would deem fair to speculate about, especially since we know at Marineford War, Marco said that Blackbeard has a weird body, something strange with his body. Yeah. And you know, how do you make clones? Manipulating cells, manipulating lineage factors, etc.
Yes, exactly. And oops, okay, sorry, I just messed something up. But yes, and you know, I think Blackbeard's really interesting, particularly because of what you said with the Trisidas thing, where like they do different tasks, right? So it's like this weird body, like is he different people sewn together? Like, is he a clone of 3 different people in one or something? And I know I saw he was here earlier. I don't know if he's still here, but one of my friends, Andrew Connor from the Discord, he always brings up that like Rox's will is in Blackbeard somehow. Like it's, you know, like it's physically, like he's still alive basically, right? Like he's gonna come back. Andrew, if you're here, I'm sorry if I'm butchering part of your theory, but I'm just wanted to reference you because you bring it up all the time. But like, what do you think about that? Do you think Rox is still like alive in Blackbeard somehow? Like whether that is a clone, so it's like Blackbeard is somewhat of a clone of Rox, or do you think it's potentially like the will, you know, like we know the 21 grams leave your body whenever you die type thing? Do you think like that was put into Blackbeard, so Blackbeard has multiple wills? Like, do you have any idea?
That 21 grams for the soul thing is 100% going to be used. That is not a random thing. So I'm with you on that one for sure. It's so difficult to gauge Blackbeard's, you know, definite connection, because then you have people like Buggy, where he was the only, well, 2 people in the story aside from Xebec said they wanted to be king of the world. Starry said it when he saw the throne, and it was like the symbol of, you know, no one ruling the world. So there's a reason for that. But like in the middle of Marineford War, why is Buggy saying he wants to become king of the world? You know, if we're going by the book, Blackbeard has only said he wanted to create his own age and he wanted to be pirate king. But we know from Roger and Whitebeard, both of them running the whole pirate game, it was said that they led their own age. So Roger and Whitebeard, they weren't king of the world when they had their own age. So I say all that to say Blackbeard on paper has never said he wanted to become king of the world, but Buggy has. So, you know, maybe there's a route that Oda takes where Buggy inherited the will of Rox, and then Blackbeard's connection to Xebec is deep, but it doesn't really have to do with dreams, desires, and wills.
That's interesting.
And maybe that can be, you know, a part of Clone Piece or something.
That's incredibly interesting, because I have like a small theory that has been lurking in the back of my head, where basically I think Rox is going to be more. Again, Rox is going to be strong. I don't want anyone to think I think Rox doesn't have conquerors and he's not a top tier fighter, but I think Rox is going to be more in line with Buggy than, say, other pirates that we've seen, in the sense of he's like I don't want to call Buggy a mastermind per se, but he's a falling upwards type of guy. He's like a planner, like money's involved, because literally Whitebeard said, hey, do you want to work for Rox to Kaido, right? Like, working for someone is not quite the same as joining a crew. Like, it could be the same, but that's just, it gives me the thought of maybe, you know, it's more like an organization, right? Like Rox was like a business almost, right? Where like he was hiring people, he was making money from the bounties they were collecting, and that's why people joined him. And he probably was strong enough to go get some people himself, but that was probably part of it. It was more of a business thing, right? Like Buggy had the delivery service, and now the Cross Guild gets bounties and all that from Marines, so it could have been a similar idea. And I like that idea you brought up, because that does kind of give Rox maybe like 2 different angles into the current world, right? Like Buggy, obviously Buggy's maybe a more disappointing way. He's falling upwards just as much as Rock, you know, as anyone could, but he's not as strong, I would say. But then you also have Blackbeard, and so what's really interesting about Blackbeard, I think, is you know, we also know that his ship is the Saber of Xebec, which is like, I don't know, like, do you think the Saber of Xebec was the Rox crew's ship back in the day, and he just found it? Because like, I doubt it would get destroyed. Like, the Oil Jackson's probably somewhere too, you know. So like, what do you think? Yeah. Like, what do you think's up with the Saber of Xebec?
I really appreciate this question. No one ever asks or talks about that, you know, at a microscopic level. But one way that you could look at Saber of Xebec, a Saber is, you know, a type of ship. No. It's a Xebec that's a type of ship.
Yeah, Xebec is a type of ship. Yep.
Yeah, and then Saber's a type of sword.
Yes.
So one interesting thing you could look at is Roger and Ace. Roger's sword was called Ace, so technically Ace is the sword of Roger, like meaning literal sword but sun. And then of Blackbeard's using the ship of Xebec, maybe this is like a parallel in a sense, where Blackbeard is the sword of Xebec, Ace is the sword of Roger, and by sword we mean father-son connection.
That's really interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm starting to think it, like, I'll just say this, like, we know that ships have souls, right? Like Klabautermon, like living forms, And we also know swords do the same thing, right? Swords also have like a personality, somewhat of a living part to it, because Enma was like voluntarily taking out Zoro's haki, and Kozaburo mentioned every sword has a personality. So like, is there an angle here where maybe Blackbeard is like some combination thereof? Like a Saber of Xebec, a ship and a sword both have souls or spirits in them, and we're saying Blackbeard's ship is a sword of a ship, right? Like the two things that have souls that we've seen in One Piece, like two inanimate objects. So I guess, I don't know, like, is Blackbeard just like the Klabautermon or something, or does the ship maybe have a Klabautermon, and that's like what maybe influenced Blackbeard in the past? Like, I know these are some crazy ideas, but I don't know. What do you think, man? Do you think the Klabautermon matters, or maybe, I don't know. What do you think?
Man, Klabautermen are gonna have to make their return, man. I would be ecstatic. I think there's even like 2 or 3 months ago, I like threw this out on Twitter just randomly because it just popped in my head, and I was like, yo, this would be so dumb but amazing at the same time. I think I said like Blackbeard is the Klabauterman of Xebec's ship or something wild like that, and people loved it, and I was like, yo, I'm just trolling here. But with Klabauterman, man, it's one of those things that have so much space. I need that material, bro. I need that material. Same. I would love it to come back in some way, bro.
Same. Like Klabautermon, it's very similar to me as what I was saying about animals earlier, how like they're gonna matter in the end game of One Piece, because animals are like a symbol of nature, and like you want to live alongside nature, and like taking care of animals and like having empathy and all that kind of stuff is like a good person thing, right, generally speaking. And so ships, that's the reason Klabautermon exists, is you care about your ship, right? And they get a soul because you cared about them so much that they're kind of caring for you back. And so that's what's really interesting, I think, about this Klabautermon situation, is like we're talking about an evil ship. So it's like, no matter what your will is, if you're taking care of your ship, it might come to help you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it might be evil. And so that's where I think it's really interesting if the Saber of Xebec was Xebec's ship, because then it's like, oh, like, one of the most evil people, supposedly, maybe, it's kind of, not neither here nor there, like a lot of things in One Piece are. But it's interesting because it's like, okay, now we have an evil ship. So like that's where Blackbeard makes a lot of sense to me, is it's like one of the most evil ships that you could imagine now, needing to take on some kind of living form, and Blackbeard being that would make perfect sense, especially because he's on Hachinosu now. That ship may have been homed there its whole life, so that's like where it should be and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, man. I'm with you. Like Klabautermon, man, I love them. They got to come back at some point.
Please, Oda, if you give me anything before the story ends, just make it Klabauterman related.
Please, man, I need it. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to a couple super chats. Thank you, Narrator, for the $10 super chat. And by the way, Narrator, I saw your stuff in Discord. I am going to get around to reading that. I just have a few long things that were sent my way, but I will get there. But you said Blackbeard got a bone marrow transplant in Drum Island, so that's how he now has 2 lineage factors, which means 2 wills or hakis, allowing him to eat 2 devil fruits, because devil fruits are haki. So you're basically saying that by getting a transplant, a bone marrow, or I guess it could even be any or a lot of other types of transplants, but some kind of transplant where then he has 2 lineage factors. I mean, I like that idea. Like I don't know if it would have happened at Drum Island, just because. Well, I mean, I guess maybe Kureha has the expertise maybe to do that, but I guess it also makes me think that he went to Drum Island, and we know that that's where Dr. Hiryuluk was, and there's like supposed to be a cure there of some sort, and Doc Q is always sick, so that's always something I've always thought is interesting. Maybe Doc Q has something to tie to this Dr. Hiryuluk situation, but I think that's interesting. I think that like him getting some kind of transplant, it could also be because his body is different, right? So I don't know, ThreeVolt, what do you think about that? Like, I mean, it doesn't have to be a bone marrow transplant per se, but like, do you think Blackbeard had some kind of operation at some point potentially?
Yeah, definitely. I think that would play into why his body's weird. I think like, with all this talk about Dr. Kureha, just doctors in One Piece, Chopper, even Vegapunk, all these guys messing with human bodies, I think that's going to be one of the layers of Blackbeard, an operation gone wrong. And I think part of his comment said double haki. That is the most simple but creative thing I've ever heard.
It makes a lot of sense.
Blackbeard having 2 wills or hakis, what? Everyone talks about like Blackbeard being 2 or 3 people, but I've never heard someone pitch it that way. So that's really, really cool. I'm digging that.
And bone marrow to me is an interesting one, because like I said, like it doesn't have to be that, but I think bone marrow is interesting because that is like like, it's the reason why you do, I mean, I'm not like a doctor, but from what I understand, like the reason why you do bone marrow transplants is like, you know, your body doesn't make a lot of it very quickly, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to replace that, you know what I'm saying? Like, if your bone marrow is bad or whatever, and again, I'm probably butchering some of it, I'm not a doctor, but basically that's like something that you would need to go get, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like something that's like hard to get and like whatever, and like, you know, you only make so much of it throughout your life or whatever, right? And so that's interesting because that's like a very, like, I don't know, it's like, it's just a very important thing, you know what I mean? And it's also like, if somebody else eats a devil fruit, we know that you can take their green blood or make green blood from their blood, whatever it is, like with Senor Pink. And so that's another layer to it where it's like, you know, what if he got just an infusion, or like you're talking about the bone marrow, but like, what if somebody else already had a devil fruit and then you put that into your body? So then it's like, well, if you put it into your bone marrow, just to go using that example, you know, that he said, well, that's separate from your blood. So you could have devil fruit stuff in your bloodstream and like in the bone marrow because it was already there from the other user, right? So that's, yeah, I mean, I like that. I mean, that's hella interesting. That's really good, narrator. And then you also gave a $2 super chat saying Blackbeard is an archaeologist and he got Rox's bones. Now, I like that because I think the archaeology side to Blackbeard and the history-loving side to Blackbeard, I think, is not talked about enough because Oda said, like, he would be an archaeologist in real life and whatever. And that, man, that's really interesting because, like, having Rox's bones, like, that would be... Because basically what I'm thinking of is Brook, right? Like, Brook is a skeleton where his soul just... All that happened was his soul came back to his skeleton and now he can move like a human again. And we're talking about the 21 grams that leaves your body and all that stuff. Like, I mean, just a random idea. Like, what if Rox's will is so strong that whenever he died, he just made his will come back? You know what I'm saying? Because, like, devil fruits seem to be born from, like, dreams or will or whatever it is. And so if you're able to... like mimic devil fruit powers essentially with hockey, which I think is kind of where we're getting eventually. Like, you can kind of mimic that, or maybe that's what they are, is like devil fruits are just a cheat code to using hockey to accomplish it, something like that. But what if that's it? Like, what if Rox's will was so strong that he just mimicked Brook's fruit and he's like, I'm coming back. Like, and so now, and so maybe like he's with Blackbeard for some reason because I don't know, he didn't want to be a skeleton or something. I don't know, but or he's stronger the horse. You know, stronger the horse.
Shout out Parvision.
Yes, shout out Parvision for sure. If nobody's seen his Pegasus video, definitely go check that out.
That's funny.
It's, dude, the Pegasus video, man, like that. I would love that idea. And then narrator, another $5 super chat. Thank you, bro. I appreciate you. Souls are made of hockey. Craftsmen input their will into their creations. That's why the poneglyphs have a will as well. That's the voice of all things. And I'm so glad you brought that up because that is another layer to Blackbeard that I want to bring up that a couple other people brought up in my Discord. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. Maybe it was you, Saran Wrap. I read part of your message. I haven't read it all. I'm going to answer your message too. Maybe it was you. But that Blackbeard can use voice of all things to read the poneglyphs, which we saw Roger do, sort of, right? We saw him like understand what it like. It's talking about a great power, but not what it was and where it was. Yeah. So what do you think about that? Do you like that idea that he uses voice of all things to be able to read the poneglyphs, like because there's a will inside or whatever?
Yeah, I like that more than saying that the carvings on the poneglyphs, the indentations are coming out and they're talking. That seems a little bit weird. But I never actually thought of it that way, that, you know, Roger talking to the poneglyphs or hearing them or whatever. That's because the blocks, you know, these tablets have a will of their own. That's very interesting. And I think on the Reverie, somebody was saying that that Blackbeard was trying to remove the stone from the poneglyphs because people or something was inside. Maybe like those two things can work in tandem with each other.
It is interesting because, like, why are poneglyphs so indestructible, right? Like, why, like, how in the world has the government not just found a way to break these things, right? Like, they have Emu who can literally, like, you know, bring, I don't even know what they are, like star lasers, whatever the hell, you know, to destroy islands. So it's like, you know, what's going on? And shout out to 3Day, who is I was just DMing about this a little bit ago, where, you know, it's weird that the 4 poneglyphs that take you to Laugh Tale are red, which is the same color as the red line. And the red line does not seem to get destroyed, right? But what we did see was Morley was able to crawl into the red line. Remember, like he was able to like push it away, like whatever his digging ability is, whatever it is. So that's something I was thinking about, is like, what if you went, like talking about people inside the poneglyphs or whatever it is inside the poneglyphs, like Morley could just get inside, right? Like I don't know, I don't know what that's gonna do, but like dang, like that, and so that's also just another layer where like, are the red line and the poneglyphs made of the same thing, or at least the road poneglyphs, so I don't know, man. Like I think there's a lot. I don't know. I need the Blackbeard answers, man. Like you were saying earlier, there's just so many possibilities,
So many directions it can go, or he can go.
Yeah, and I mean,
which is a good thing.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Blackbeard's one of my favorite characters. I don't know about you. I mean, I would assume he's up there for you, but
certainly.
Yeah, dude, Blackbeard, man. That's I mean, I think people are sleeping on him. Like I see him pretty low on people's power rankings, man. I don't know. I feel they're sleeping. Sir. They're
sleeping on him is insane.
The thing with me with Blackbeard, like I always tell people, is like, yeah, sure, maybe he can't punch as hard as people and whatever, but he doesn't lose. Like he just that's the thing. Like I know it's like plot armor, like sort of, kind of, but it's a different plot armor than Luffy, where Luffy just is pure luck, where Blackbeard makes his own luck, right? Like he's like, I'm gonna go in and pre-plan. I'm gonna only go in when everyone's weakest, like with Whitebeard and all that. And on top of that, I mean, dude, Blackbeard took a Gura attack from an angry Whitebeard point blank and got up like a couple minutes, not even a couple minutes, like almost immediately. You know what I'm saying? Where Akainu was down for a minute.
About that.
I know.
No one ever talks about that, bro.
They're sleeping, man. Like that's what I'm like. When people say like, "Oh, he'd get one-shotted by whoever," I'm like, nah. Like that, if Whitebeard hits him point blank around the neck with a Gura attack and doesn't take him out, dude, like Luffy would get taken out by that. You know what I'm saying? Like pre-time,
100%.
Like maybe not today, but back then, 100%. So it's like for me, man, I don't know. Like I think Blackbeard is top. I think people are sleeping. I'm gonna get to a couple more super chats real quick. Let's see. Another $2 from narrator. Thank you, bro. That's the theory I sent. Devil fruits are hockey. Well, I'm definitely gonna go read that, because I think the way you tie it to Blackbeard makes a lot of sense, and I do agree with the devil fruits are hockey, or like maybe not like the devil fruits themselves, but the powers are born from will, essentially. Like you can go recreate those powers, maybe with like top tier hockey, which is like kind of weird to think about, but I don't know. I have a really good example from my Lucky Roo video that I don't want to spoil, but there are some people in One Piece that use other abilities other than devil fruits to get very close to devil fruit abilities, and it's kind of weird. I mean, Shanks has a flaming sword. That's like one example. And Andrew Connor, thank you for the $10 super chat, bro. We need to play some Apex soon. Every person in One Piece has two souls, a body and a shadow. That is true. Cavendish has a third soul called Hakuba that comes out when he sleeps. Blackbeard never sleeps, because if he does, Rock Spirit comes out. Andrew, thank you for sending that. I butchered it earlier. That's definitely what it was. What do you think about that? Do you think like it's a Cavendish situation, and that's why he's not sleeping? Because if he ever went to sleep, then maybe Rocks would take over?
Yeah, because I feel like a mechanic like that in the story, why give it to this random Cavendish guy? Like, yeah, he played his role in the Coliseum and Dressrosa or whatever, but like that seems like such a unique direction that has like endless possibilities, and like prime opportunity would be someone like Blackbeard, especially since the whole sleeping thing. I think like that caveat kind of adds precedence in a way, in terms of like having multiple souls. The shadow thing's interesting too. Maybe someone before Gecko Moria had that fruit and he did something to Xebec, or like I don't know, but that's very interesting. Andrew Connor's been pushing that for a long time, and I've been giving him like a little bit of pushback, but I mean, I think the thing that really sells me is the way he put it with the two souls already, with a body and a shadow, and then if you put a third soul, because that's always been my thing, is Blackbeard with the three skulls. I mean, you know this very well. There's going to be a three element. Like I know you brought up the three hearts before, right? And this to me, like the three souls in terms of the normal soul he's born with, his shadow, and then Rox's 21 grams of soul. Like if those three combined into one person somehow, like, I mean, man, like that. I mean, shoot, like, because then it also is interesting, because when did Blackbeard eat Whitebeard's fruit? When he was covered in a tarp. And what happens when you're covered in a all black tarp like that? It's pitch black underneath. And so that brings the shadow question, it's like a bigger level, because it's like,
oh, he was in a pitch black place where like you could argue he is just a shadow at that point, right? Like there's no light in there, so he is just, you know, like that's it. It's just pure darkness. It's just 100% shadow in there. And so maybe whenever he does that, the fruit goes to the shadow or whatever, right? Like some kind of funny business. I mean, shoot, it makes a lot of sense, man. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I think one detail that like us as a community need to bring up more is like Blackbeard's current bounty, 3,996,000,000 berries, is a Japanese pun for San Kokoro, and San Kokoro translates to 3 hearts. I think I can't, like, me personally, I can never ignore that.
Yeah.
Like, if we're talking about like Blackbeard's skull or Blackbeard's Jolly Roger having 3 skulls, like, we got to talk about how his bounty literally translates to 3 hearts. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and Oda's used bounties plenty of times to like hide little things. I mean, like Luffy's like Gomu was in there before and whatever else, right? And like Katakuri was like slightly above Luffy whenever they were fighting, right? It was like, you know, he does that a lot. So I'm glad you brought that up. I totally forgot about that. It's unignorable. I just want to get to a couple more super chats. Thank you guys for the super chats, by the way. And I also want to say we're at 125 viewers right now, and that is the most I've ever had on the channel. So thank you very much, and thank you ThreeVolt for pulling the crowd. I appreciate you, bro.
All good. You deserve it.
I appreciate it, man. And I want to get to, let's see, Mr. Bushido's super chat. Caribou is related to dragon. So I'm glad that you brought this up, Bushido, because I think there is a lot here. I'm going to quickly just read your other one, and we'll just time together a little bit. Punk Records is the traitor. It is Vegapunk's brain that was cut off. It sees the satellites as unnatural threats and wants to be whole again with Stella. So I'm glad you brought that up, because these are 2 angles I think that people have been bringing up for the traitor, and I know we talked a little bit about it earlier, but we didn't talk about either of these. So I kind of want to know your thoughts. I mean, first off, what do you think Caribou's doing? I want to know that. What do you do? You think that shadow blob was Caribou? I definitely don't think it was, but people have been bringing that up. And
definitely not.
What do you think he's doing? Do you think he's still around, involved in this, or what's happening?
Well, I want to start by saying I highly doubt he is the traitor blowing up Pythagoras. I would even argue that he didn't open up the defense system or the shield or whatever either. I don't know, man. Caribou is always a dilemma, because all he really does is try to kidnap women, listen to talks about ancient weapons, or get captured by the Straw Hats like over and over. I don't know, man. Oda might take the direction where he was just wandering around, maybe try to kidnap a random girl, gets captured, and like nothing else.
Yep.
I don't think Oda's going to utilize Caribou in the sense of like, okay, these Vegapunks are dying, the defense system's opening, you know, all this mayhem. I would definitely say he'll play like a low-key role this arc.
Yeah, I'm with you, because Caribou's role and like throughout the story has not been to be a legitimate threat. You know what I mean? Like actually messing with the plans. Like the worst thing he's done is try to kidnap Shirahoshi, and the crew just walked up like, bro, what are you doing? You know, like they just like, it was like a not really, like she was definitely concerned, but it was very temporary, like not like a legitimate scary situation. And so for me, for Caribou to all of a sudden be a mastermind would be very weird. You know, like for him to be shutting off the defenses and doing all this other stuff. So I'm 100% with you. Caribou needs the crew in order for him to get off the island, so it doesn't make a lot of sense for him to sabotage his only way off the island by messing with the crew. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a suicide.
Yep. But I want to mention, you know, Mr. Bushido brought up that Caribou might be related to Dragon. So do you remember the Caribou cover story where basically he goes to like that random island, meets an old woman, and they mistake him for Gabaru, this like I don't even know what you want to, like some kind of hero guy. And and maybe it's a little bit of a stretch, so I don't know about Dragon, but I mean, like the hair, like if you look at like silhouette kind of things, you know what I mean? Like the hair is kind of similar, right? And I mean, obviously like they have like the weird, like Caribou has like the weird tongue and stuff, but what do you think's going on with that? Like, do you think Caribou, like what is Gabaru? Like, do you think that's a clone situation, or do you think this Dragon idea is potential, or like, because I think Gabaru could be like a freedom fighter. That's where I've been going with it. You know, like he is a past freedom fighter. So what do you think?
Yeah, maybe Gabaru did work with Dragon. I don't know if I want to go down the route of Caribou being related to Dragon in some kind of way, because, you know, from my stance, when characters are related to each other, of course they're gonna usually look like each other.
Mm-hmm.
But there's plenty of characters like you could just throw out that look like each other but have no relation to each other. So in terms of like stacking up evidence for a theory or a conclusion, I don't really grant too many points to like, oh, this character looks like another. But the Freedom Fighter one's very interesting because I think like that's gonna matter and that's gonna add more depth to Caribou, especially since he's been getting dragged to like every island damn near in the post time skip. So and I like that route.
Yeah, and you know, he, like I said, he almost stole Shirahoshi. He's the one who knows where Pluton is. Now he knows all this. He probably knows a lot about the stuff that's been happening at Egghead. Like he probably overheard the Ancient Kingdom stuff. Like he overhears everything. So yeah, I like that, because what if he was a freedom fighter, like, or he's like a clone, or he's a son of a freedom, whatever it is, right? He's connected to him, and so that does give him maybe like a similar will to someone that would have been working with Dragon. And so now we have all this stuff where, like, you know, he's finding out the ancient weapons and all this behind the scenes stuff that could have been like Gabiru's goal, you know what I'm saying, to begin with, like, and he's falling upwards into what Gabiru was trying to do for Dragon, and maybe Gabiru died in the process, and maybe because Oda does things like this on a super deep level, maybe the way Gabiru died let Caribou live, like he was like saving, you know what I mean, like he went and saved an island and died in the process, but Caribou and Koribu got to leave because of it and whatever. So yeah, man, that's my thing. Like because also the flag that we see Gabiru on, it not that we know much about the freedom fighters, but it feels like a old Revolutionary Army flag. You know what I mean? Because it's like it's uniform we haven't seen before, and it's like very like military style, but not like a form we've seen. So it makes me think. You know, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And you could simplify it because it's the Revolutionary Army. So, True. You know, if they have army in their name, of course, they're going to have like a lot of traits that deal with like this military attire and, you know, being a rebel or saving people or whatnot. And I actually like what you said about Caribou and Koribu. Maybe like, what's their father's name again? Gore.
Well, I don't know if it's it's Gabiru is like the connected guy, whoever he is. Yeah.
Yeah. The clone.
Yeah.
Him. No, I think he has a huge chance to be related to Caribou, but I bring him up to say that what was I saying actually? I like what you said about Caribou and Koribu possibly being related to him, and you know, having, you know, that guy die while saving an island, because I think that could even relate or be a parallel to Fishman Island. And I know Caribou was at Fishman Island and he tried to kidnap the mermaids, but that could play into their role of being like these rebellious pirates and being bitter towards the world and being evil, because their father was ruined by the world. He was ruined by other pirates, the Celestials, etc.
That's such a good point, because remember when we met Caribou, he was like mercilessly killing Marines. Remember, like in Return to Sabaody, he was like, he found one and was like kind of torturing him a little bit, and then fake Luffy came over, was like, let him go, and he's like, no, I'm gonna still kill this guy.
Yeah.
No, man,
exactly.
That's so true, man. That's a great point. I think we're definitely on to something, man. I mean, and shout out to Kev Dog in the chat. You had a great comment there. Imagine the insanity if Gabiru died from quicksand or something, and then Caribou got quicksand as his fruit.
That's crazy,
bro. Kev, that might be a whole theory video, man. Like that's amazing, man. That's so Oda. You know what I mean? Like that's 100% Oda.
100%.
Wow, that's amazing. And then also, Bushido, I know you also were talking about Punk Records being the traitor, so I want to get your thoughts on that. Have you heard that idea, that Punk Records is kind of retaliating itself?
No, I haven't heard about that, like, deeper.
So, yeah, it's basically, like, you know, it's almost like a sentient AI in a way, right? Like the Punk Records has realized, like it's also Vegapunk's brain, so it knows, it's so smart at this point that it knows if I die, or if Vegapunk dies, I die. Like if the Stella body's dead, I go away. You know what I mean? And so basically, what if Punk Records has become, you know, like self-sentient essentially, and it knows, like it's its own supercomputer at this point, and it's doing all this on its own. Like it's like, you know, either like turning the systems off on purpose and turning them back on so that people are trapped, and, you know, taking out the certain kind of snails, and maybe even making like a living form, like a Klabautermon type thing. And so it's just reacting. It's like, you know, I want to live and you guys aren't doing it right. Like I'm smarter than all of you because I'm all your thoughts combined into one. And so it's like, so I'm gonna protect myself from you guys because you guys aren't doing it right. And part of that is, killing the Punk so they stop getting in the way. I mean,
that's definitely interesting.
It's deep,
Yeah. So like for me, I've been like weekly reading for like quite some time now, and like I feel like I've kind of developed an intuition, and like when I make a theory or if I'm trying to convince somebody, I don't ever add my intuition to the evidence list, because I feel like intuition is very subjective. Like
Right.
I could feel like this thing's true, but like that just be completely wrong and my feelings not mean anything.
Yeah.
But I say that to say that a lot of times I have intuition with theories and mysteries during like the weekly runs that we have, or the weekly reading, where it's like someone will come up with a great answer for a problem that we're having, but Oda just would not go that route because it's very left field. And like with that one, I feel like you could probably stack up a bunch of cool points, but me personally, I don't have the feeling that Oda would take that route. I think it would be more of like a real person, a Vegapunk, Stussy, whoever that's like actually running around, this cloaked figure killing people. I don't think, and again, like this isn't something that I would say as a fact, it's just my opinion. I don't think Oda would take the route of this rogue AI creating a physical person. But if I'm wrong, I'll be more than happy to admit I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm with you where it is I like basically what you said, but I might approach it from the other angle where it's like, if this did happen, we got to think of what's going to happen afterward, and like the can of worms that's open from having the self-sentient AI do all this is crazy, because then I mean people, and it's not that it's impossible, but I know Parvision has talked about this a little bit, just that basically maybe like the Ancient Kingdom or the world government or whatever has like their own version of Punk records from the past or something, and maybe like that thing becoming self-sentient, like basically if this one here in Egghead became self-sentient and was doing stuff and taking people out, then any version of Punk records that was made prior that's supposed to be better would also be doing the same thing. You know what I'm saying? So that's my thing, is like, well, if this happened, then we have to start talking about like Emu just being an AI, which shout out to Hidden Island. I know he talked about that a little bit, or a lot of it, but which like I'm not against. I think that's a good idea, but that's just like you're saying, like to me, it's just like, my first thought is, okay, well, if that's true, then we got to start thinking about all this other stuff, and that's just a lot. Like you said, it's like left field, like that really changes a lot, and it's not that it's impossible, it's just that would definitely be a theory where Oda's just gonna have to do it before I 100% sign in. It's not that it's impossible, but it's like I would probably go towards what you're saying, like an actual human or creature, whatever they are, is in there that we don't expect. Like that's just a lot more reasonable. It also brings in other like more reasonable plot lines, I guess I would say. Like if it is Lafitte and Shiryu or something like that, okay, well Blackbeard probably wants Punk records, like that makes a lot of sense, right? So like everything's just a lot easier to tie together. So I think I'm with you. It would be a lot, that's all. It would just be a lot, that's all. But I do want to ask, since we're on the topic of the traitor, there is a really good idea that I heard yesterday, or maybe it was like really early this morning. I can't remember because I was up late, but I can't remember who it was. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name if you're here. But basically, so whenever, and I said this during the first time I saw him in my reaction, but whenever we, like early on, right before we saw Pythagoras, it's Pythagoras, I think, like where it's just like the head and the feet, right? Like like his body was separate. We saw a silhouette that looked identical to Moria. Like there was like the bulbous shape with like the big toed shoes, but then the next panel we see Pythagoras with the feet, and it's like, okay, that's him. But a little bit later we see a shadow blob going towards the screen, and Shaka even says, what is that shadow? So I'm like, I was backing up like, all right, like I know that wasn't Moria earlier, but the fact that a shadow's coming in like that weirds me out. And then a lot of my chatters were bringing up some good ideas, like there is also S Gecko somewhere, like the Seraphim, that would probably have the shadow powers, and Moria is working with Blackbeard, so probably, we don't know that for sure, but I feel pretty strongly that Moria like caved in because he didn't want to die. And what would be really interesting is if Shiryu is also with Moria on Egghead right now, like Shiryu's invisible doing all this stuff. That's like a re-rendition of Moria and Absalom. Like Moria's stuck working with the invisibility guy again, but it's the guy that took his boy's fruit. You know what I mean? So he's like, man, like this really sucks. But they would be a good tandem probably to break in. I mean, Shiryu is obvious, and then Moria, I mean, they probably have a plan to like use the shadows to take the clones or something like that, I would assume. So I don't know. What do you think about that? You think Moria or S Gecko might be involved?
So I was pulling it up while you were talking about it, and you said there's the shadow right before we see Pythagoras' head, right?
It's like a couple panels before. It's like the bottom left panel of a page. I can try pulling it up.
Okay, I think I see it. It's like a shoe in like the bottom of a belly, right?
Yes, it looks like someone with a bulbous shape and then like clown shoes almost, or like tall. I don't even know what to call them. And like that's like the exact image I think of whenever I think of Moria. Yes, like I'm trying to pull it up too, but it's very close to what I would expect from Moria's silhouette. You know, like I mean, it was enough to where the first time I saw it, immediately I said it. So like to me, like, and again, I'm not right on everything, but to me, whenever something jumps in my head immediately like that, it's like, okay, it's probably right from like I'm probably thinking of something accurate, I think. So yeah, I don't know. There it is. I see it. Yeah, that is what I would imagine Moria looking like if he was walking up, you know?
I definitely agree. You know what? Like I personally feel like the other 3 warlords that were around at the same time as the 4 current Seraphim, I believe all of those original warlords are gonna have Seraphim. Are you aware of like the breakdown for that?
Can you say that again?
Are you aware of like the reasoning as to why the 7 original warlords are Seraphim?
Like you mean just the original 7 and not any of the, or you mean like the original 7 and not any of the additional ones that came after, or?
Yeah.
I mean, I figured it was just going to be the original 7, but I don't know if there's like a specific reason, if there's like a theory behind it.
Yeah. So like in the Jewish Bible, they had seraphims in it, and there was only 7 of them, as far as like Jewish culture goes. And then like when you think about when Shaka was walking the Straw Hats to their laboratory and he was kind of talking to them, one of the rooms they walked by, there are 7 doors, and I'm like, man, why are you like throwing that out there? It could have been 8, 9, 4, 11, like. So I say that to say, I keep using that phrase. I mention that because I really like how you're saying S Gecko, and I'm expecting at some point to see S Gecko, S Flamingo. And, you know, one other thing, not to go too off track, but
no, go off track, man. Go for it. That's what it's all about.
Well, one of my options for the traitor would be S Flamingo, but I can't actually bring a solid argument for it. Yeah. And like if that somehow works, and like, you know, there's this rogue Seraphim, maybe he's not the only person orchestrating this whole thing. Maybe he did like 1 or 2 actions. I'll be so mad because I can't like gather any reasoning, like any solid evidence for that.
Hold on, sorry. I got something messed up on my screen. Sorry guys. I see that. I'm just trying to close it. It won't fix itself. It didn't close. I have a window that's halfway up on the screen and it won't. I hit the eyeball that's supposed to hide that window capture, but it's, let's see. Okay, I just deleted the whole thing. It was just Streamlabs messing up. But we're good though.
All right, awesome.
But yeah, man, I'm with you. I've heard a lot of good S Flamingo arguments. And like they all sound good. Like I know he's coming, you know, he's definitely coming, but like you said, like there's nothing that's even happened in Egghead where I'm like, okay, like that would be a string ability or like whatever. But you know, the more I've been thinking about it, I mean, you know, like the Seraphim, it'd be kind of crazy, but like the Seraphim like aren't listening or whatever. Like what if S Flamingo is just puppeteering them at this point? You know what I'm saying? Or
yeah, that was my exact reasoning.
Yeah, or S Gecko is using his shadow, you know what I'm saying? Because we saw the shadow blob. That's my favorite. That's been my favorite thing, is like we really need to have a discussion on whether the Seraphim are actually alive or not. Like, are they corpses that are robots and they can be taken over with shadows, or are they actual living beings that can't happen to? You know what I'm saying? Which, honestly, the more I think about it, this could lead to a really interesting thing with Vegapunk, because remember earlier in the arc was Atlas specifically who said, I consider that matter settled on like what's living and not, or whatever, right? Like whatever the exact phrasing was. And so that builds an interesting argument where it's like, well, if shadows are like, you know, controlling these Seraphim, then are the Seraphim really alive? But then it's like, then I think Oda would have a thing where like, yes, like just because you're controlled by a shadow doesn't mean you're not alive. It's like, yeah, it just means you're a corpse without like a natural soul, or so, I don't know. But that's, you know, I don't know, that's an interesting angle I think to all of this, is the shadow and life stuff. And I mean, going back to the Blackbeard stuff earlier with like his shadow being important, and he obviously has like the dark fruit, which is almost just like shadows in general, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I mean, there's a lot here. Like I don't know. I'm kind of like a Moria stan a little bit. Like not that I think he's strong or anything, but just, I mean, he fought Kaido. You know what I mean? He went and got Shusui and Ryuma's corpse and ores like that. You know, he was doing. He was moving. He was moving early on in his career, and then Kaido just, you know, just gave him like depression. Basically, he couldn't. You know what I mean? Like, and
ruined his life.
And there's also a question where we don't even know what Moria's race is. You know what I mean? Like, Moria has like one of the weirdest races, in my opinion, in the story. Like, I don't know if we've seen anything like him. So I don't know, man. I'm ready. I'm ready for Moria. I'm pumped.
Yeah. And you know what? Another way you could look at S Flamingo is, you know, it seems to be that the Seraphims have at least little bits and pieces of the personality from who they're based on. So if that's true for S Flamingo, then maybe he still has this god complex and he's like, yo, F Celestial Dragons, I'm not listening to Vegapunks, I'm not doing this, maybe I'm malfunctioned, and he, S Flamingo, could lead the tirade of the three remaining Seraphim against the Vegapunk, Straw Hat, CP0, whatever. Because another thing that like I noticed, maybe it was like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, is like the 4 Seraphim that we're currently aware of, all 4 of these guys have had a good relationship with the Straw Hats. We know Kuma has helped them, Boa likes Luffy, Mihawk trains Zoro, and who's the 4th one? Jinbei. Jinbei's literally a crew member.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So if there's 3 more Seraphim to fit the Jewish Bible, and those are the 7 original warlords, it's interesting how Flamingo had beef with the Straw Hats. Moria, I don't think he ever forgave Luffy and the Straw Hats. And then the third one, who would the third one be?
Crocodile?
Crocodile.
Yeah.
I don't think definitely not Crocodile, because I remember while he was helping Luffy and Marineford, including saving Ace, he was very reluctant and he was talking trash like while he was attacking Akainu. So I do think like that is a very interesting observation, and that could be why the 3 remaining Seraphim will be an even bigger threat to the Straw Hats and co. But I don't know if Oda will go down that direction, and I'm curious to see what you think.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a really interesting point where like the ones we've seen like the Straw Hats and the ones we haven't seen don't like the Straw Hats. That is really interesting. Like that, I never really thought about it that way. And I mean, and that could also be maybe Oda foreshadowing in a way that these 3 are gonna eventually flip over. Like, you know what I mean? All the other 4 have, and this is just, and maybe this is even how it starts. You know what I'm saying? Like, like small example is maybe like they don't want to kill one of them, and like, you know, let's, for example, like Croc or Gecko Moria or somebody's like, you know, they like feel good that like the Straw Hats didn't want to kill like the clone of them or something. Yeah, I don't know, something weird like that, some kind of weird connection where it's like, oh, like you're actually a good person or something, and like maybe you help me out in some way, and I don't know what it is. Like, and I also feel like, you know, like you said, like the Seraphim carry, like kind of have the will of the person a little bit, or like at least the combat style, but definitely I think the will in general. And so that's another thing where like, what's going to happen when the Seraphim meet their counterparts, right? Like, are the Seraphim gonna, like, obviously they're commanded by people, but, you know, I think there's also going to be some kind of free will argument here. Like, that's going to come into play where it's like, you know, how do you make living things just obey your every command? Like, are they really like alive at that point if they're just obeying? And so it's like a weird argument. And I could see maybe like, you know, these Seraphim meeting their adult forms or whatever, normal forms or whatever, and maybe like they listen to their adult forms. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, that's like the number one person they'd listen to, because it's like the will that drives them to begin with. You know what I mean? Like, the only reason they have a will and they're doing stuff is like because of the will of that person. You know what I mean? So I don't know. What do you think? Like, even if you don't agree with that, is what do you think's going to end up happening with the Seraphim generally? Like, we're like whenever we get out of Egghead, what do you think's going to happen?
I think there might actually be like maybe like a Vegapunk ship in the Grand Fleet. I think that'd be crazy, because I don't really see 4 or 7, however many Seraphim there are, that'll be under Vegapunk's wing. And I feel like Vegapunk's gonna live. That's kind of like a separate conversation though. But just to, you know, kind of cut it short, I think like a route Oda could take is, again, have like a Vegapunk ship in the Straw Hat Grand Fleet that includes Seraphim. Like, imagine that being on Luffy's side. Like, that's just insane.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned at the beginning of the stream, you know, the Seraphim are supposed to be like like the furthest evolved humans or something, like the strongest humans, whatever they are. And I think that's really interesting because I do agree with you. Like a Vegapunk ship makes a lot of sense. Like just, and it could even, like, I think the original Vegapunk is going to live, but maybe die before the end, if that makes sense. Like I think he's going to leave the island and spend time, but then die before the very end. But like you're bringing up like all the other Seraphim and maybe like the other Vegapunks, if they survive and stuff, like they could all come in. And I like that because, like, going back to the evolution stuff, and like these are the furthest branches of evolution, we could maybe see an example where we see like, no, Luffy is the furthest branch of evolution because of his devil fruit. Like he's the most free, right? Like he's able to like his imagination runs the world type idea, and that's like Luffy is the number one imagination that exists, or you know, like whatever it is. And so the Seraphim, like people consider that to be the case, but then maybe there's like some kind of showing in front of like a million people, like, damn, like Luffy, like, because, you know, maybe he changes something to rubber and like blocks a crazy attack and all this stuff, and people are like, maybe even the Vegapunks, you know, like, yeah, the Vegapunks are like, no, like this is the furthest branch of evolution, like we haven't seen anything like this, but like he's literally changing the world at will, you know, like the Seraphim are nothing like this, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. Because yeah, I don't know, I think you're right. I like what you said about the ship. I think it makes a lot of sense, and just it gives a good chance for exposition, I guess, for, you know, kind of like the roundabout thing Oda always does, where we learn after the arc is over, we get towards the end, and, you know, the people come back, we learn all the important lessons and stuff. So I like that. I hope the Seraphim don't die, you know. I hope that's not what happens, but it's possible. But
yeah, especially when you think about like the whole thing that Vegapunk wants to do is get out of Egghead. So like I don't really think Luffy moving Vegapunk is doing anything for Luffy. It's more so a favor for a friend.
Yeah.
So like one way to what's the word? One way to like pay back Luffy for getting him to Elbaf or wherever would be working with Luffy and being friends. And, you know, maybe this whole ordeal at Egghead will have Vegapunk be like, you know what, they're trying to kill me, they've been abusing and using me, this pirate Luffy is the nicest guy in the world, he helped me get to where I needed to go, why should I even care about the world government? And this could be like one of the leading factors into him having a Vegapunk ship, and him being like, you know what, Luffy bro, I'll be in the Grand Fleet, just hit me up when, you know, Great War starting, just hit me up when something crazy happens, I'm there for you.
Yeah, no, that's good. I like that a lot. I think, and you know, I think it's funny. I think like a similar thing is going to happen to Sentomaru, and I mean, we've seen it happen to Marines and government affiliated people throughout the story, right? Where they experience Luffy for a little bit, and Luffy ends up helping them when the government wouldn't, or Luffy did the right thing when the government obviously didn't, and then they start thinking like, all right, like that's not how it's supposed to be, right? Like that's not like I'm like, and then like Smoker's a good example where Smoker like almost helps the Straw Hats at this point, right? Like he knows they're good people, he's very aware of it, and so I think it could be a similar thing. Because I don't know, Smoker's going to come back at some point and help the Straw Hats, I'm sure, but no, I think that's probably where it's going to go. I think what's really interesting is, you know, the SSG, like the Seraphim and all that, have been hyped up the whole story, or not the whole story, but since we heard of them as like this like almighty force, right? Like the top of the line thing that's gonna help the government win, and like they don't even need the real warlords anymore. So I think Oda is definitely gonna take that idea and show like, no, like this technology isn't the way to go. You know, like each of the warlords. Again, I don't want the Seraphim to die, but I would like to see each of the warlords come in and defeat their Seraphim to show like, you guys were wrong. You know what I mean? Like, no, like normal will, you know, that you're born with and you get from your life experiences is better than forcing it. Like you can't force a will on someone. You can't surpass your limits with someone else's will. So yeah, I don't know. That's my goal, is that we see them fight and they all win. But, you know,
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
I want to give a couple shout outs to some super chats that are in here. Nick super chatted $5. I appreciate you. Also said CP0 said S-Bear was not following orders when they were on their ship, so maybe it is a Seraphim. Now that is interesting, because they said it was a problem child or whatever, right? Whenever like they were bringing it in. So right there, I think you're right. That's some evidence almost already that there's like some, I don't know if it's like disobeying is the right way to put it yet, but definitely the person's will matters. You know what I mean? Like it seems like they don't always listen. So yeah, and thank you for that super chat. That is, I totally forgot about that. And narrator with the $5 super chat, thank you. Yeah, because will or hockey exists in the lineage factor of every living thing, and the Seraphim have the will of their originals. True. And now I will say, like, will and hockey are the same thing, but I would also wonder if you get someone's will through DNA, like, your hockey's not going to be the same in terms of, like, strength. You know what I mean? Like, you're still going to have to train that and improve. But with the same token, like, the hockey or the will is still going to be, like, geared towards the same thing. Like, you're going to be chasing the same goals or whatever, I presume. So I don't know. What do you think about that? Like, do you like, obviously, like, there's a little bit of the will carrying over, but like here's a good question. Like, if somebody has conquerors and you get their lineage factor, is that person going to have conquerors? The person that has the lineage factor?
Great question. Man, difficult. I would definitely not die on either side, but
Same.
I would not die on a side, but I would lean towards each individual person having their own makeup of hockey. So like, if you cloned Roxy Xebec and you had a Blackbeard, whether it's failed or not, I would lean towards Blackbeard being his own sentient person, even if he was biologically cloned from Xebec. I don't really have reasons to prove that, but I would probably lean that way.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I don't think, like, if you clone someone with conquerors, or if you took their DNA or anything with lineage factors, I don't think lineage factors is the same thing as hockey.
Yeah.
So therefore, that they wouldn't reproduce the conquerors.
Yeah, I'm with you. It might predispose them to conquerors, right? Like, they're a naturally strong-headed person that's gonna do it, but like, it's kind of like life. Like, you still have to go have the experience, right? Like Luffy unlocked conquerors because he was in traumatic situations and trying to save people's lives, and he trained it over time and honed it. So I think it's gonna be the same thing. Like, yes, like, you can be predisposed to it like Luffy was, but you gotta go earn it, you know? Like, if it's not gonna happen just like I think Yamato's maybe a good example of that. Like, not that we know Yamato's beginnings, although I would not be surprised if Yamato was a test tube baby as well. But but like, she had conquerors when she was just like a little kid. You know what I mean? Like, and she just didn't even know how to control it at all. And like, obviously she's related to Kaido somehow, and Kaido can use it willy-nilly. So I do think there's definitely a lineage factor, like not a lineage factor to conquerors, but I'm with you. You're gonna have to go earn it, I think.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I think it's still important as far as all the stuff we're learning. Like Rox probably knew that and was like, hey, if I want to come back, it's gonna be because someone else has my lineage factor and just reduplicates what I'm doing. You know?
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting way, and you have a super solid point that, again, if you have a baby, I think it was stated somewhere that they're more likely to pass on conquerors, and I know Garp was impressed about that. Maybe like a clone or like a test subject with altered DNA could have it, or maybe it's some other reason why, having a kid will pass down the conquerors most likely. That's an interesting subject.
And Mihawk, did the Mihawk Seraphim use hockey? No, it was Blackbeard used hockey against him. Well, he used like a Rio, like it was a slice, and we don't know if it was hockey, but he sliced the whole mountain in half from distance. So maybe there is some kind of hockey that gets carried on. But yeah, I definitely think, like, if you want top tier hockey, you're gonna have to go earn it, like, no matter what. I think is where
100%.
I'm at. Yeah,
you have to train it. So yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
Mr. Bushido, thank you for the €2 super chats again. I appreciate you. Gabru is Che Guevara. Dragon is Fidel Castro. Bushido has a whole good Reddit post on this that I definitely recommend everyone go check out. You can join the Discord and go find it in the theory zone. But it's no, I like that a lot, Bushido. Or like, maybe not 100%, but I think the angle you're taking is right, and they do look very, I shouldn't say very similar, but similar enough to where I would believe that Oda based them off them for sure. And then you also super chatted and said X Drake shows up with Carrot soon and saves the day. Bro, I say this every stream. Mr. Bushido, I love your ambition for Drake and Carrot coming back. While I definitely don't agree, I respect your ambition, and whenever Carrot does inevitably show back up at some point, you're gonna be the first person I think about. and shout out. What do you think about Carrot? I just want to ask, like, did you see Carrot is in the middle of the cover for volume 105 with the 4 emperors, and she was also next, like a great value. Carrot was next to Sentomaru a couple chapters ago. She coming back?
Cool observation. Definitely not going down that route. You know, a lot of times we kind of have to like be honest with ourselves. You know, if you love like an event person, backstory, you know, something like that's cool, but I feel like with Carrot fans, the love is so strong that they're kind of like forcing this outcome because of the love.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are more points, but I'm not really under the impression that she's coming back and or joining.
Yeah, I'm with you. You know, the love is so strong among Carrot fans. I'm almost jealous. You know what I mean? Like the people I like don't have that much fandom. You know, but I'm with you. I mean, Carrot's gonna come back for sure, like in the Grand Fleet. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the story.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I think the reason Oda is throwing Carrot everywhere, like in the background with Sentomaru, the rabbit propeller thing for the Sunny and being on the volume, I think it's because she's not coming back. You know, because Carrot has a big fandom. He's trying to include her as much as he can because of that. Not as a foreshadowing that she's coming immediately, but more of, unfortunately, hey, it's going to be a little bit till you see her, so let me just sprinkle her in, you know what I mean, just to give her some love kind of thing. So
yeah, I feel like her and Yamato are under the same boat where like any sort of attention, and no matter what fashion it is, people will take that as like foreshadowing for them being a part of the crew. So either like Oda gives them zero attention for the rest of the story, or at least until Final War, or people will take any kind of frame, panel, cover, SBS something to use that to say she's gonna join back.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a oh man, I just had the word in my head. It's one of those psychology. It's like, man, confirmation bias, isn't it? But it's those things where like you're putting the answer where it's not. You know what I mean? Like you're searching for an answer so bad that you'll like, you know. But not to like, you know, talk any smack about Carrot fans. Like I said, I'm jealous of the fandom, but I do think the reality is we're not going to see her for a while. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll have to, you know, eat my words soon enough. But
I like Carrot. I support Carrot fans. Zoe's one of my favorite arcs. Zunisha, the whole thing with the moon going Sulong is sick. 100%.
Yeah, Whole Cake is my favorite arc, and I wouldn't say it's one of my top moments, but one of the coolest moments that I always tell my friends, like whenever they're watching One Piece for the first time, because I've had like a dozen people do this, I'm like, hey, let me know whenever you watch this episode. I want to know like what you think. That's always one of them, because it's like you don't really expect it. You know what I mean? Carrot just turns into super badass. So yeah, I like Carrot too. I just don't think she's coming back soon. But when she does come back, it'll be super hype, I think. But
100%.
Narrator, thank you again for the super chat, man. I appreciate you. It's the memories that carry over. Conqueror's Haki would still be possible, would need to be trained. Memories exist in Lineage Factor through Haki. Yes, I think that's pretty much it. Like the person will have the memory, or like I said, like predisposition or whatever to use it. But like you said, it has to be trained. It's almost like LeBron's kid is good at basketball, but if he wants to be the NBA, he still has to work hard. You know, that kind of feel. Big LeBron fan over here, but and then you also super chatted another $5, bro. Appreciate you. Will or Hockey or Soul or Life Force or Lineage Factor or Dreams, they are used interchangeably in the series, and I think that's a big point of where the series is going to go at the end. Is like everyone's like, I don't want to say like thoughts or memories, like maybe that's like too basic, but and maybe even Will is too basic, but it's just like life itself, like the desire for life to do things, you know what I mean? Like kind of like on Earth, right? Like the Earth, like in our world, you know, it's like life itself starts anywhere. Like if you have like a pool of water and whatever, life will start. It's like that will of life to just survive and keep going. And I think that is roughly where the series is going to go, where it's like, you know, like now we have like advanced life forms, so like the will and the thought of these life forms is different. But I think that's where the series is going to go, is like, kind of like Papag said, the whole world runs on willpower, right? Like life itself has a will to do things, and like the stronger of the wills win. And we're probably going to find out that will, if it's strong enough, can do like anything, like mimic devil fruit powers. Like maybe Luffy loses his devil fruit, which I think this is going to happen. Blackbeard takes it somehow, and Luffy mimics the powers through hockey. You know what I'm saying? shout out to Parvision for devil fruits or training wheels for peak hockey. I think that's what it's called. So yeah, I think we're eventually going to find out that, you know, will is literally everything. Like devil fruits are will. Everything that happens in the world is will, and it's all driven by like that just life itself to survive and keep going and all that. So I don't know, what do you think, I guess, just generally about that? And also, like, do you think Luffy's gonna lose his fruit? Like, do you think devil fruits are hockey, like essentially hockey based, like people will be able to mimic them with hockey eventually?
Man, as of late, I've been feeling the elemental hockey thing. Like, it's just been growing onto me for so long now. But in terms of hockey, I just want to quickly bring up, I don't even remember Papag saying that. I'd love that you brought that up.
Oh, that's one of my favorite lines. Par Vision, shout out to Par. He brings that up a lot. Yeah, it was like, because he was saying, like, I willed myself to become a sentient starfish. Like, the whole world runs on willpower. It's like, bro, this dude was just a starfish and started talking. And now, maybe he's capping, right? Like, maybe he's, you know, hyping it up a little bit. But still, you know, like, Oda loves throwing stuff in there like that, you know, so...
100%.
Yeah.
But on the topic of wills, though, Will of Deva... People in the chat know that's what I'm dying on the hill for.
Yeah, so why don't you go ahead and explain that? I've seen the thumbnail. I think I've watched the video, but I know that at least that one came out a while ago, if I remember correctly. So why don't you go ahead and just refresh us on exactly why you think that is the will of D, right?
Yeah, Will of Deva. So, and hopefully Oda uses the exact word. He might not, but I'm pretty sure the exact scope, the exact idea will be the same. But anyways, we know that Luffy's based on Hanumanji because Oda said it in Road to Laugh Tale Volume 4. A million similarities. Luffy used Bajranka, and Bajrang's a word for Hanuman. So just to summarize it, Luffy's based on Hanumanji, which is a monkey god from Hinduism. And in Hinduism, it's like there's an everlasting war between the Asuras and the Devas. And the Asuras are said to be evil, malevolent demons, if I'm not mistaken. And then the Devas are said to be good, happy-go-lucky gods, right? So I think when they say, when Corazon says that the D are the enemies of the gods, you look into Hinduism because ironically they use the same exact phrasing where they say that the Asuras are the enemies of the gods. Like in their written text, it is the exact same phrase. So what I think Oda is doing here is he shows an Ashura being relevant in One Piece through Zoro's demon inside of him, but eventually there will have to be a Deva counterpart in the story to kind of condense the rest of it. I think the Ancient Kingdom was the home of the D clan, the home of the Devas. And the 20 kings and Emu or whatever are the Ashuras, the bad guys, the demons that eradicated the D clan, called them the demons, and called themselves as gods. So the Ashuras hijacked the position of the Devas, told everyone that the Devas are Ashuras. That might be a little bit confusing.
No, I get what you're saying. I think that makes a lot of sense. Oh, and thank you, 3Day, for linking ThreeVolt's video. I appreciate you. I get what you're saying. I like that. And now I want to almost spin this off into a whole discussion on Ashura and Zoro because I have a lot of thoughts on that. And 3Day and I have talked about this as well, how Ashura might have something to do with Blackbeard because Zoro triples himself. You know what I'm saying? Like that's literally, you know, and now all this tie with Ashura and what is it, Trisidas, right, is supposed to be Blackbeard or something like that. So there's a lot of ties here, potential ties, you know what I'm saying? So I like that a lot. But I also want to say that the D idea you brought up, I like that a lot because it, like, as you were saying it, it almost blew me away how much our ideas could link, and I wasn't even aware of it until you were saying it. So you say it's Deva, and I think it's Davy. So it's almost like the same name, but you're just swapping the things, right? For Davey Jones, right? That's like, I think it's D for Davey Jones. I think Davey Jones is basically Joy Boy's Laboon. And that's the whole point of the D clan, is to come back and save Davy, or like come back to him, right? That's like the whole point. And so whenever you were saying that, I was thinking in my head, like, bro, like you could almost, like, I know you said you hope it's exactly Deva in the story, but it's almost like Oda could use that, but he's just swapping it to make it Davy. So it's literally the same thing, but he's roping it into the big pirate story of Davey Jones. So I would almost say, like, I think whether it's Davy or Deva, it's almost like I feel very confident now it's going to be one of the two because of how close those are. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's literally like Davy spelled with a Y, obviously, but it's still like you're just swapping a couple letters. You know what I mean? And that is like, that blows me away because I can totally see Oda being like Deva, Davy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can just combine them. So that's crazy, man.
I hate that I haven't heard of that or thought of that before. Do you have a video on that?
Yeah, so in Lafro Tale I talk about it, the same like Afro video, like my biggest one.
Oh.
But and this is good for the chat to know, Lafro Tale 2 is coming out next weekend, and it's about Luffy's second dream. And I do recap the theory a little bit. I guess a lot of it. I do recap it, but not every single thing. But I also sprinkle in a lot of, like, Vegapunk said a lot of stuff that I think back up what I was talking about in some points and whatever. But long story short, in the Lafro Tale video, I didn't explicitly say that I think the Willa D is Davy, but I talk about how, like, his whole crew is supposed to come back. And then in Lafro 1.5, which I did, like, one responding to comments, there, like, probably, like, 20 people commented the Willa D is going to be Davy. And I was like, bro, how did I not even think of that? Like, that's crazy. So in the next video, that's also going to be a big focus of it, is that... So, like, I guess we can just rope this into our whole One Piece theory. So, you know, like, I think it's under Long Ring Long Land, and you think it's in the center of the earth. And like we said in Parvision Stream, I think it is in the center of the earth. It's just the entrance is at Long Ring Long Land, and you just go all the way down. But, and this is where it gets really crazy, is, you know, I also think it's going to be inside a whale at the same time, meaning that the center of the earth would have a whale in it, which sounds like absolutely insane. But, bro, like, to me, that almost makes more sense. Like, honestly, like a whale inside the center of the earth. Like, that's just like, bro, like, that is the crazy stuff that I would expect for the ending of One Piece. You know what I mean? And so that's my thought, is that Davy's down there and, like, they hid him away and he's holding laugh tip because he's an island whale, or maybe a different, I think he's also an all white whale, and that's why Joy Boy was friends with him, because, like, they're all white, because, like, that's like the story of Moby Dick. He's like a white whale or whatever. But so I think that's all. I don't know, man. That's crazy. Like, it could be, if Davy Jones is the whale, I think that's probably where we're headed. And so anyway, that's going to be a lot of what's in Lafro Tale 2. I spoiled some of it except the dream part. But yeah, man, this Deva and Davy stuff, man. Like, I'm gonna have to mention your video in that video now, because I'm
so upset. That is such a banger. You almost make me feel dumb. Like, I was like, yo, it has to be Deva. Like, what other word could it be? And, like, you just, like, knocked it out the park with that. If it's not Deva, I'll die happy if it's Davy.
And same if it's Deva, because like I said, like, they're so similar. I can almost guarantee that Oda is trying to link them, like, trying to tie both parts, because like Deva has a big, like you just explained, big tie to, like, the past, and, like, why, like, you know, like the ancient kingdom flipping the script on who's bad and evil and all that kind of stuff, and using, like, that, all those examples from Hinduism that very obviously, or Hindu mythology, I don't know if that's the right way, but whatever, that tie directly to all this. And then to flip that and just add a little pirate element to flip Deva to Davy, like, to me, bro, that, man, like, that convinced me so much more than before. Like, that is an acceptable D answer to me, like, all these layers to it.
Yeah, so really quick, technically the D in Hinduism is either Deva or Davy.
Oh, really?
So I don't know how that slipped my mind. Shout out to Abine in the chat. The reason why I went for Deva is, like, I just chose the masculine one, but it never occurred to me the whole Davy Jones thing from Long Ring Long Land, and, you know, the whole pirate kind of theme with the story of One Piece. So that even leans more in favor of Davy, and this could be hinted through Hinduism amongst other things in One Piece.
Yeah, hey, bro, we might, after this is over, you and I might have to talk about this, and like, it just so I can get the full detail, because I have to mention this now that we brought it up. I mean, that's shout out to Abine. I read that. That's if that is, like, I see you spelled it two different ways. If it's spelled Davy in any version, even Divi is enough. But if it was spelled Davy anywhere in any Hindu text, it's over. Like, that's it. You know what I mean? So, no, man, that's crazy. My mind's blown right now. I'm gonna have a hard time moving on. That's crazy. That's, wow. Man.
Yeah, man. And the Hinduism runs deep. Like, if you watch my videos, like, there's, bro, down from, like, the most obscure details that are exactly the same in One Piece, down to the medium things that are kind of hazy, down to the broad things. Like, there is so much influence, and it's crazy how, like, I feel like not that many people talk about it, and, like, it's an absolute gold mine. Like, the father of Hanuman is the wind god.
Oh, wow. I mean, in Dragon, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like when I watch because I mean, this probably happens with a lot of mythologies, but whenever I watch a video and people start linking things, I feel like I'm like almost too easily sold sometimes. I'm like, oh yeah, oh that it all links together too well, that's got to be it. And so sometimes I feel like that with your theories where I'm like, bro, like there's no way it's like that all makes too much sense, you know what I'm saying? But whenever it does make too much sense, maybe it doesn't mean all of it's correct, but like you're saying, it leads us to believe that Oda 100% is leveraging it, right? And even if he's not going to stick to it 100%, even if the ending is a totally different mythology related thing, it's almost like in Wano, like the Momotaro thing, right? Like how like Momo took like a monkey, a pheasant, and whatever other, I can't remember off the top of my head, whatever it was, and they went and, you know, took down the Oni King or whatever. It's like, even if that's not exactly what happened, because like there wasn't like a clear pheasant unless it's Marco, whatever it was, it's like Oda obviously was using that for that situation. So I mean, man, I'm sold, man. The Hindu mythology stuff, I'm gonna have to bring it up now, man. That's big time.
Yes, sir. And we're all excited to see Lafro Tale 2. I'm gonna have to go rewatch the first one.
Hey, please do, man. I was telling people yesterday during my stream, this is like the first few days where Lafro Tale is like dying, quote unquote. Like I dropped it October 2nd, and it's just now starting to have like less than a few hundred views an hour or whatever. And so it's like the perfect time. So yeah, I would appreciate for sure if you would watch it. I think Lafro Tale is going to be really good. So Lafro Tale 2 is going to be really good. I have a lot of thoughts on it. So, and Abine, I see you said yes, it is Divi in Hindu text. Well, that's still close enough to me. You know, like for Davy. Yeah, like that's yeah, bro, that's crazy. that's crazy. Oh, okay, a lot of check my DMs. I see 3-day thank you, and I see some other people. Thank you guys. I feel like we might have just blown some minds here in the chat. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to Narrator for another super chat. Thank you, bro. I really appreciate it. Luffy's dream will consist of him making other people's dream come true, specifically by unlocking devil fruit powers as Nika or Joy Boy did before him. I don't want to spoil my whole theory on it. I did bring it up last week a little bit with King Recon, so if anyone wants to go watch that VOD and try to find it, there might be a hint in there, but I don't want to say it this time now that I have it concretely planned out. But I will say the first part, I 100% agree. Luffy's dream is definitely about making other people's dreams come true, but we have to remember that he said it when he was 7 years old the first time, so he didn't know a lot about the world at that point. Like he didn't know, I mean, he knew pirates existed because of Shanks, but he didn't fully understand everything. So as far as the unlocking devil fruit powers part, I think that could be true. You like, and I'm not saying you said this, but like it could be true, like in a indirect way, like that is what happens because of his dream, but that's not actually his dream. But I think I know exactly like what he's been telling people, and I'm really excited. But what do you think? Do you have any thoughts on his other dream?
Yeah, I think I know this narrator. Maybe it's a different one, but I have a video that is the exact same conclusion, 1-to-1 as that.
Okay.
Man, I made it at like 2 or 3 in the morning, so I don't really, and it was a few months ago, so I don't really remember all the details I used, but I remember like how I always do. I make a list of like however many bullet points that's going to be relevant to the mystery or the problem I'm trying to solve, and like that's what I did for the Luffy dream one, you know, trying to make other people's dreams come true. It's beyond me how the reasoning slipped my mind, but I remember it fits. As far as I believe, it fits what like a kid would say, because trying to make everyone's dream come true is pretty childish, especially like when you consider how the world's in turmoil, and like this is like a little kid that's trying to become the pirate king. Like if he believes make anything come true and he could become this most free man in the world, this king of the pirates, this guy like Shanks, like I feel like he could simultaneously make other people's dreams come true, even if it is selfish. But yeah, I actually need to revisit that video because all the reasoning like slipped my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's almost like 100% that like whatever Luffy's dream is, it's gonna unlock other people's dreams, right? Like, but now the question is, like I was saying, like it's like what is he actually saying? Like what did he say that then Shanks went to Rayleigh and was like, he said the same thing the King of the Pirates said? You know, I think that's a mystery, you know, that I think it's kind of like the One Piece. Like we can assume, maybe not, but like the One Piece, we can kind of assume roughly what those things are going to do, like turn the world on its head and make the world government, you know, freak out and stuff. So but no, I'm probably gonna go watch your video to give me some ideas as well, because I don't know, whenever I come up with a big theory, I always go try to like look at some people's theories and make sure I'm not like doing the same exact thought process. But I agree, it's gonna be helping the world in a big way. But what's interesting is, remember Jinbei, or I think it was Jinbei, somebody said, oh, maybe once you become Pirate King you can actually do that. And it's like, well, why does he need to be Pirate King first? You know, like what is it about the One Piece? You know, whatever. So, but real quick, I want to give a shout out to Narrator yet again. Thank you for the $2 super chat. He was letting you know. Yeah, it's the same guy.
Real quick, I think we might have missed L's super chat earlier. I sent it to you in a message.
Let me see. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do see that. Oh, my bad, L. Sorry about that. Oh, that was like, and there was a bunch of them. I see why I missed it. I'm sorry. My bad. Yeah, L super chatted about 20 minutes ago. My bad. Do you all think there's going to be some Seraphim MK2, Law, Blackbeard, etc.? Now, that is actually an interesting idea. Because obviously the MK3s were like the upgraded pacifistas, essentially, right? And so that's really interesting. I mean, do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I would actually love that, and that would be insane, man. A Blackbeard Seraphim, like, come on, that wouldn't just like blow your mind. That wouldn't just like send shivers down your spine if you saw that in a panel. Bro,
and Law, Buggy too, which I know that's kind of a meme, but like, I mean, a competent fighter that can break his body apart. I mean, shoot, man, you know, like, man, that's a great idea, L. That's great. I mean, you know. Go ahead. The funny thing about like Buggy is, like, you know, his whole thing failing upwards. Imagine like the Buggy Seraphim is like this super strong soldier that's like top of the line, and like, since it's based on him, yeah, he's kind of questionable in terms of strength at times, but he failed he successfully he failed upwards to have like this clone soldier that's like one of the strongest soldiers in the world. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Yes. And remember earlier I mentioned like maybe somehow the actual warlords can control their own Seraphim. Imagine if Buggy controls his own Seraphim somehow, and so then Buggy doesn't have to fight himself, but it's still Buggy. You know what I'm saying? Like, he still gets the credit from everyone for being, like, he always does. Like, no matter what happens, he gets the credit. So then he just starts sending his Seraphim out to go do stuff, like collecting the bounties. It's like, hey man, go take out this, or I guess not, he's like paying out the bounties, but like making money, generally speaking. He's probably gonna go hunt pirates, get money from the government, like hey S Bug, I don't know what S Clown, it'd be S Clown, right? S Clown, yeah. Go out and go hunt like these weak pirates, go turn them in, get me this money, then I have the money, and then I can pay people out for like the marine bounties. Like, there's so many funny things that Buggy could use that for, that's like selfish but also very in line with what Buggy's doing, and it could matter. So no, I love that idea, because it could also be like the original warlords, they've been getting worked on longer, so they're like more fine-tuned, and then Law, Blackbeard, Buggy, all these people that weren't there long enough, maybe like they did, like Vegapunk didn't get enough experiments or whatever, and so they're like faulty, right? Like, and maybe they're the only ones that can be controlled by other people, right? Like, maybe the original ones can't be, but maybe somehow Buggy finds a way to control his because it's not as fine-tuned or something. So that's an amazing idea, and it's also just a chance for Oda to flex. You know, Oda loves doing that, like showing cool designs and stuff. So hell of an idea. That's amazing. I love that.
100%.
That's amazing. And thank you for bringing up that super chat. I don't think I missed any other ones. Thank you guys all for the super chats today, by the way. It's been amazing. And even just the chats in general, I've been keeping track. You guys are awesome. ThreeVolt, you pulled a hell of a crowd today.
Yeah, everyone in chat's just been spitting all day. I've been reading them.
Yeah, oh dude, it's great, man. I've been trying to keep up. I mean, obviously I even missed one. It's been going so fast, but no, I guess the last thing I want to talk about, I guess just loosely, because I am going to end this in about maybe like 5-10 more minutes or so, just FYI. I guess I want to know, you know, Oda has set up like 10 different plot lines that are just lingering right now, right? We have Garp at Hachinosu. We have, we don't even know what happened with Law and Blackbeard. Like, we just talked about their Seraphim, and they've been fighting technically for like 11 chapters now. We don't know what happened with the Black Vortex. And then obviously like the Gorosei, like we saw one a couple chapters ago, but now we haven't seen him. You know what I mean? Like Oda's doing this back and forth. So what are you most looking forward to as we go forward? Like which one of these events can you most not wait to see? And what do you think, why can't you wait to see it?
Definitely something related to Blackbeard, because you know, I think everyone agrees that Luffy versus Blackbeard is the battle for Pirate King. And when you see how he's fighting Law, who has the ultimate devil fruit, perpetual youth surgery, he's getting pulled upon by Garp, who's closely related to Luffy, just like Ace was. I think Oda's going to do insane things to set up Blackbeard for possibly the best, biggest fight in anime history, period. So I'm very curious to see, you know, as well as the characters that are affiliated with Blackbeard, as far as fights go, like what's going to happen to Law? Is he gonna live? Is his fruit gonna get snatched? Like, is he gonna escape? And like Kobe, what's going on with Kobe and Garp? I think everything that Oda has in store for Blackbeard is just going to be insane.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And do you think like, I guess, when do you think we're gonna get the climactic Blackbeard versus Straw Hat battle? Like, do you think that's coming up sooner than we expect? Like, is all this stuff at Hachinosu leading up to that, do you think? And like maybe this goes straight to Laugh Tale, or do you think like this whole Blackbeard stuff is going to be separate? We're going to go to Elbaf. All this stuff's going to happen. It's going to be a couple years, and then later we're going to meet up at Laugh Tale, or what do you think's going to happen with all this?
It's been really difficult to gauge, but right now I'm leaning towards, you know, an Egghead arc, an Elbaf arc, and then versus Blackbeard arc. I feel like the amount of lore that's going to go into that would be a little too much for, you know, something to happen during Elbaf, because I feel like Shanks is going to show up, and then maybe the ancient weapon Uranus, everything with Loki, maybe meeting Jaguar. I think like it's just like if we had the whole Blackbeard versus Straw Hats thing happen at Elbaf, I feel like that's just a Wano 2.0 in terms of size. So I would lean towards Blackbeard versus the Straw Hats as its own individual arc.
Yeah, same. That's what I'm hoping for, because like even like I have a Garp video, because I do think Garp is going to end up dying. Now it's not going to be straight up Blackbeard owns him. It's a whole, you know, it's going to be like Whitebeard, where it's extremely impressive and there's going to be a lot more to it, all that kind of stuff. But kind of like you're saying, like for me, it's like if Garp is going to die, or even if he doesn't, to give him his proper exposition, which he needs against Blackbeard, because he fought Rocks, you know, in the past, and Rocks used to be on Hachinosu and all that kind of stuff. So it's a perfect chance for exposition on that. I can't see a way in which Oda would, if the Straw Hats did come to Hachinosu at some point, I can't see how Oda would give Garp his proper love and give him, you know what I mean, like proper exposition on all that stuff, and give proper time to all the fights, and then somehow warp this to where we go to Elbaf and then Laugh Tale. Like that order of operations just doesn't seem like that's, you know, like there's a lot to pack into one tight part, and then we're kind of left with like not enough. I feel like you know, it's like a weird helter-skelter setup after that. So I agree. I think it's going to be, the Straw Hats are going to stay completely away from Blackbeard, like whether they know it or not, and they're just going to avoid him. We're going to have all the Hachinosu stuff. We're going to go to Elbaf, and then it's going to culminate later, for sure. Like a Laugh Tale battle, maybe. Like they're actually at Laugh Tale.
Or Hachinosu battle.
Yeah, I'm down for that too, because you know, who knows, you know, like I brought this up before, like maybe Blackbeard wants Punk Records or something, which Hachinosu has a giant skull on the island. So what would go inside a skull? A giant brain. And so, you know, so there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of potential here for things to connect, for sure.
That's sick as hell.
Yeah, I mean, he also has Pudding, right? Pudding can pull memories out. Pull it out, Punk Records. You have Devil Fruit knowledge. You have everything you need, you know, if you have Pudding's fruit and Punk Records. So I don't know, man. We have a lot to look forward to, that's for sure. 2023 is going to be awesome.
Yeah, sure.
All right, well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and end Davey Dak Fight Round 2. ThreeVolt, this was absolutely amazing, and thank you for the chat, for just being active and giving some awesome thoughts. We may have uncovered the Will of D and, you know, some other things that are coming up here in the chat, so this was amazing, guys. Thank you so much. ThreeVolt, and thank you. We're going to have another one next week. I don't want to share who the guest is yet because it's not confirmed, but you guys should be excited either way. And ThreeVolt, any parting thoughts? You want to plug some things you got coming up?
Just the only plugs I need is for you guys to hit the like on the stream, subscribe to your boy Dak. He's going crazy. Check me out if you want. You know, I'll be dropping them bangers just like Dak. But yeah, extremely fun today. I appreciate everyone in chat, you know, visiting Dak's channel, and you know, just being around talking about One Piece is always great vibes. And Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you for coming on. This was great chat, good vibes for sure. This definitely will not be the last time ThreeVolt and I, get on the channel together, either his or mine.